Hello, class. In this set of videos, we're going to learn how to use Illustrator. It's really a practice assignment. Now, we're not in Illustrator right now, we're in AutoCAD. In class and lecture, I'll go over how Illustrator and AutoCAD are similar and how they can really work together. But this assignment is really just a first go. It's a practice at using Illustrator. It's not exactly how you would probably really operate when you're fully in practice doing these things, but it's an assignment that's meant to get you used to the basics of Illustrator, and we'll go over that as we go along. But the reason why I wanted to start in AutoCAD is because I provided an AutoCAD drawing of a perspective of whichever house you selected, and as is typical, I'm going to use this one as my example. But if you have the other house, open that AutoCAD file and you'll follow the steps just the same. And the reason why we're starting in AutoCAD is because as an architect, oftentimes our work is either in AutoCAD or Revit. I'm using AutoCAD for this, but Revit would be done exactly the same way. And you want to be able to take vector work from AutoCAD or Revit and put it into Illustrator and use as a base to draw. Now, it's probably not going to be a perspective like this, but it certainly might be floor plans or elevations and things of that nature, which we will work with a little bit in future assignments. But nonetheless, no matter what kind of drawing you're moving between AutoCAD or Revit and Illustrator, the best way to do it is really to print a PDF. So that's what I'm going to do from AutoCAD. So I'm going to go to my print button here in AutoCAD and set your plotter to Adobe PDF. If you don't have Adobe PDF, you probably have some sort of PDF there. We're going to work on 11 by 17 for this assignment. So set the paper size to 11 by 17. We're just going to print from model space. So let's go to window and draw a window around the house. Get some of the ground line I have in here. You don't have to get it all, but some space on either side of the house. Let's center our plot and let's make it landscape orientation so it's as big as possible. And make sure your CTB is set to monochromatic. And fit to page. We'll do fit to page. And if we do a print preview, we should have black lines like this. And one of the reasons, just to briefly go over why I like printing a PDF from AutoCAD or Revit, is because it does a few things for us as we move into Illustrator. It gets us our line weight set for us. It turns all the lines black instead of the colors that they might be in AutoCAD. And it gets it scaled correctly. All are things that are difficult. You could bring AutoCAD or Revit work into Illustrator through other means than printing a PDF, but they all have certain drawbacks. Not to say that I haven't used those other methods. You can import them, you can save as, all these different kinds of ways of doing things, but I like printing a PDF is the most straightforward to control scale, line weights, and making sure all the layers are black. Plus, it only creates one layer for your lines, which I like. Not everyone does, but if I brought in the AutoCAD file and had a bunch of crazy layers, it doesn't help me in Illustrator. So this is a quick review of why I like doing this method. And anyway, that's sort of an aside, but when you see it looking good, you can then hit your print button. And since we're printing a PDF, it's going to ask us a place to save it. So go ahead and save it wherever you would like. It's just going to be a PDF. And it'll take a few seconds to generate, and you'll have it here. Turn sideways probably, but that's perfectly fine. You can close this PDF down and then go ahead and open Illustrator, which I already have open. And I'm just going to go to open because we're just going to open that file that you just had. So I think I saved mine here. So here we go, it's open. And then I guess what we're going to want to do is sort of rotate this page. So why don't you go to Document Setup, Edit or Artboard. This is how you can change your paper size. It's set correctly, 11 by 17. We just want to rotate it around. So I'm going to change this to a 17 and this to an 11. And our paper is set, but now we have to rotate our house and our image. So go to your black arrow right here and just click and drag. I'm clicking and holding, and then I'm letting go, and it selects all this work right here. And the black arrow lets you do a lot of transform tools all in one, scale, move, and all these things. But if I go to the corner, I can see I get a little arc rotation, And that means it's going to be the rotate tool. Okay, so if I click and hold, I can rotate this thing around. Now, if I want to get it perfectly straight, I'm going to have to hold Shift on my keyboard. You see, it only snaps at certain increments. So snap it so it's in the correct orientation. And then if you want to move it, if you need to center it more on the page, up or down or left or right, just go over any of the lines. You can see now I've got just a solid black arrowhead. That means I'm in move mode, so you can see I can move it around as needed. So just center it where you want to. Again, somewhat in the page, just like that. And you can click and let go, and now we have our CAD line work in Illustrator ready to render. Now, like I said, the method I use, it brings all the lines under one layer, which I like. If you've used line weights in your CAD, you can go back and edit those line weights later pretty easily by selecting line weights. Now, we will want to do that because that's an important lesson, but there's no point in adjusting our line weights until we get some rendering down and we can see how it looks. So we will get back to adjusting line weights later in another video. It's very important for almost any work you do, though. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to name this layer. I'm just going to call it CAD. So I just clicked on the text and typed it in, and I'm going to lock it. Okay, so I hit this button right here to lock it. In Illustrator, I find that locking layers is really important. My general recommendation is to keep all layers locked except for the layer you're working on. And we're going to go through the videos and make lots of different layers by hitting the new layer button down here, just like in Photoshop. And I'll tell you when you should make a new one. But essentially, if it's a different color, make it a new layer. That's my quick rule. Or a different object, make it a new layer. Keep everything locked except for the one you're working on. As our setup, CAD will remain on top to keep our line work, and we're going to make a bunch of new layers underneath it for each of the various elements and a little bit for the background as well. Again, this is to practice using Illustrator tools and drawing in Illustrator. Most people might not draw a perspective in Illustrator like this, although I have, because quite honestly, Illustrator is maybe one of my favorite programs. It gets very sophisticated. When you really dive into it, you can do quite amazing things. And although I don't think it's typical that a lot of people, especially if you're working quickly, they do many perspectives in Illustrator. I'll often do pieces of siding or brick or add some detail or create a new texture that I couldn't get anywhere else, or whatever the case might be. I might do that work in Illustrator and then merge it into Photoshop. So we're not going to go over those techniques today, although I do have plenty of videos on YouTube if you want to see those more advanced techniques. But again, this is for practice. So with that, I'll end this intro video, and we'll get into real rendering in the next video.